Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds.
Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month.
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
It's Saturday, the 1st of February. I'm Ciara Revens, and this was a week that saw Rachel Reeves under pressure as she pushes for growth. Donald Trump blaming a US air crash on diversity. More hostages released as the Gaza ceasefire continues, and the passing of musical icon Marianne Faithfull.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
This week has seen Chancellor Rachel Reeves and her growth plan for the economy firmly in the spotlight, particularly as Friday marked the 5th anniversary of Brexit. At the weekend, European Trade Commissioner Maroš Šefčovič announced the bloc would consider allowing the UK to join the Pan-Euro-Mediterranean Convention. The scheme would allow for tariff-free trading across Europe, as well as parts of North America and the Levant. Šefčovič also pushed for the review of a veterinary deal to align UK food and farm product standards from the EU. While the Labour government has ruled out rejoining the single market or customs union, Chancellor Rachel Reeves said on Sunday that she's open to exploring the trading scheme.
It was really interesting to see that the UK might be welcome in that pan-European and Mediterranean customs framework. And we are absolutely happy to look at these different proposals because we know that the deal that the previous government secured is not working well enough.
There was a new row over extremism on Tuesday as part of a Home Office report was leaked to right-wing think tank Policy Exchange. The leaked section suggested that the Home Office is concerned about misogyny, Hindu nationalism and what's referred to as the manosphere as breeding grounds for extremist behaviour. The report also argues that the government should focus on a behaviour-based and ideologically agnostic approach to dealing with extremism. Prime Minister Keir Starmer said it's important that the government takes a broad view of risks.
I think when it comes to extremism, it's very important that we are focused on the threat so we can deploy our resource properly. And we've got a sort of cohort of loners who are extreme, and they need to be factored in.
The report identifies what it calls the manosphere as a crossover between extreme misogyny, right-wing extremism and racist narratives. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Phillips was unimpressed, however.
94% of terrorism-caused deaths since 1999 were caused by Islamist terrorism. Does he agree that combating Islamist terrorism is more important than policing the manosphere?
Chancellor Rachel Reeves addressed business leaders on Wednesday as she and the government continued to push hard to get the economy to take off. Speaking in Oxford, she outlined new plans for what she called Europe's Silicon Valley between Oxford and Cambridge that will see infrastructure built and plans that could lead to billions of pounds of new investment in the economy. She was also firmly backing aviation with support for more development at Luton and Gatwick, along with a reiteration of her support for a third runway at Heathrow.
The last full-length runway in Britain was built in the 1940s. No progress in 80 years. So I can confirm today that this government supports a third runway at Heathrow and is inviting proposals to be brought forward by the summer.
You would think that would please the aviation industry, but Wednesday saw Ryanair boss Michael O'Leary savage her plans, calling the Heathrow expansion a dead cat that could take until 2040 to complete. He would much rather see a scrapping of airport duty for passengers, and he wasn't mincing his words either.
I don't know what fucking airline this dopey git actually flies on that has economy airfares of £200, but the £2 is not 1% of an average airfare, but it probably shows you just how out of touch Her Majesty's Treasury are with reality.
Former Prime Minister Liz Truss famously sent Sir Keir Starmer a 6-page letter in January demanding formally that he cease and desist from making statements that she had crashed the economy. Apparently it was ruining her reputation, but she may need to draft a more specific letter after Wednesday's Prime Minister's question time. New Tory leader Kemi Badenoch was on the attack after Rachel Reeves announced a series of new growth plans to stimulate the economy. She was targeting the employment bill, describing it as an adventure playground for lawyers and urging Starmer to stop being a lawyer and start being a leader. That didn't go down well, and poor old Liz Truss got dragged into it.
We
knows she's not a lawyer. She's clearly not a leader. If she keeps on like this, she is going to be the next lettuce.
This week has seen a mixed reaction to Chancellor Rachel Reeves' renewed efforts to drive growth in the economy. She's determined to push ahead with the third runway for Heathrow and has promised spades in the ground by the end of this Parliament. The Chancellor is also urging an acceleration in building projects across the board, firmly putting environmental issues in second place.
We've committed to build 1.5 million homes in this Parliament, and we've made it easier to build, for example, around commuter railway stations, with the default answer for planning applications now being yes.
That gung-ho attitude has alarmed environmental campaigners who are unimpressed by the new approach to building and a proposed nature restoration fund that developers would be asked to pay into. Wildlife and Countryside Link CEO Richard Benwell says the government should be more concerned about wildlife like newts and bats.
These are precious species that are on the edge of survival in many cases, and they're protected for a reason. It's when we arrive at a situation where wildlife is on the edge that the laws start to kick in.
It was a busy second week in office for Donald Trump with a whirlwind of executive orders, Senate confirmation hearings and then a tragic plane crash above Washington, D.C. The week started with Russian President Putin reigniting claims of a stolen 2020 election during a media appearance, making some bold allegations.
I can't help but agree with him that if his victory in 2020 hadn't been stolen, perhaps the crisis in Ukraine that began in 2022 wouldn't have happened.
Donald Trump got his new Secretary of Defence, Pete Hegseth, confirmed by the Senate late on Sunday night. The vote went to a tie after some Republican senators refused to back the former Fox News presenter for the hugely important role. Hegseth has expressed controversial views on women in combat roles, and his views appears to match up with Donald Trump's larger war on diversity and equality across government. Late on Monday, Trump signed new executive orders, one to ban so-called DEI initiatives in the military and an order to reinstate over 8,000 service members who were discharged for refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccine. Other orders look at creating new policies on transgender troops and the possibility of creating an American Iron Dome missile defence policy. Secretary of Defence Hegseth fully backed his new boss's plan.
And today there are more executive orders coming that we fully support on removing DEI inside the Pentagon. This is happening quickly. We will be no better friend to our allies and no stronger adversary to those who want to test us and try us.
The executive order chaos continued all week, this time with one that instructed a pause to payments of federal funds from Tuesday afternoon onwards. The pause, which was intended to allow time for review of federal payments to make sure that none of the funds are going to support activity that conflicts with President Trump's agenda, appears to be an illegal action by the new president. He's not supposed to seize or interfere with funds approved by Congress, and it was swiftly blocked by a judge in the US, which led to the new administration rescinding it completely. Trump was also busy ramping up deportations and planning to deport US criminals.
And I don't want these violent repeat offenders in our country any more than I want illegal aliens from other countries who misbehave. I want them out of our country. I also will be seeking permission to do so.
Tuesday saw the first official press briefing on the new Trump White House as new press secretary Caroline Leavitt took up her role. She began by promising to tell the truth, but spent a lot of time parroting Donald Trump's version of the truth. We did at least get to the bottom of the mystery drones over New Jersey.
The drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. This was not the enemy.
Things took a tragic turn early on Thursday morning as reports indicated that an American Airlines passenger plane collided with a US military helicopter near Ronald Reagan National Airport. The plane, which was arriving from Wichita, had 60 passengers and 4 crew, seems to have come into contact with a Black Hawk helicopter, which resulted in the plane crashing into the Potomac River. White House Press Secretary Catherine Leavitt confirmed to Fox News that Coast Guard and emergency services were on the scene.
Tragically, it appears that a military helicopter collided with a regional jet at DCA Airport right here in Washington, D.C. And I can just say that the thoughts and the prayers of the entire Trump administration are with all those that are involved.
Rescue crews had been searching the Potomac River in the centre of Washington, but early on Friday, Washington, D.C. Fire Chief John Donnelly said they're not expecting to find any of the 67 people involved alive, but they have recovered the black boxes.
We are now at a point where we are switching from a rescue operation to a recovery operation. At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors from this accident.
It's the worst US air crash since 2009, but instead of comforting the nation in a time of grief, new US President Donald Trump took to the podium in the press room at the White House and immediately blamed diversity policies for the crash. That's after Elon Musk forced out the head of the Federal Aviation Authority on the 20th of January with no replacement nominated, and after Trump fired the head of the Coast Guard and the head of the TSA, along with the removal of a crucial safety committee. He wasn't taking any blame though, pointing fingers at everyone but himself.
I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back. Obama, Biden and the Democrats put policy first.
While Donald Trump was busy blaming diversity for a plane crash, the US Senate has been working its way through his list of nominees for key positions in the new administration. Thursday saw some tough sessions as Kash Patel, a man who wrote a children's fairy tale about Donald Trump and the Russia scandal, defended himself in a bid to become the director of the FBI. Meanwhile, Tulsi Gabbard was coming under pressure over comments on Edward Snowden and Syria as she claims to become Trump's intelligence chief. RFK Jr. was in for day 2 of his grilling in his effort to become health secretary, and he got taken to task by Senator Bernie Sanders over his views on vaccines and autism.
Studies all over the world say it does not. What do you think?
Senator, if you show me those studies, I will absolutely, as I promised to Chairman Cassidy, I will apologize.
That is a very troubling response because the studies are there. Your job was to have looked at those studies as an applicant for this job.
Landmark buildings across the UK were lit up in purple on Tuesday evening as a visual commemoration of Holocaust Memorial Day. This year marked the 80th anniversary since the liberation of concentration camps, and survivors gathered along with world leaders to mark the occasion. King Charles was in Poland to attend the commemoration and spoke at a Jewish community centre in Krakow, calling on the world to never forget the horrors that went on under Nazi Germany.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a post-Holocaust world, projects such as this centre are how we recover our faith in humanity. They also show us there is much work still to be done to use it to inspire us to build a kinder and more compassionate world for future generations.
As Europe and the US have seen the rise of far-right politics, there's growing concern over anti-Semitism and the distortion of history through misinformation and disinformation. Germany's ambassador to the UK, Miguel Berger, was warning that his country has a collective duty to keep the horrors of the Second World War in mind.
It is the German responsibility for the history that we have to keep the memory alive, and it is not about the guilt of the Germans, but there is an individual responsibility for learning from history.
4 more Israeli hostages were released by Hamas last weekend, and 200 Palestinian prisoners freed from Israeli jails as part of the ongoing ceasefire agreement. The 4 female soldiers, all aged 19 or 20, were handed over to Red Cross officials during a staged ceremony in Gaza City, set against a backdrop of slogans condemning Israel and denouncing Zionism. Meanwhile, President Trump was busy floating the idea of relocating the Palestinian population while Gaza was cleaned out, an idea immediately condemned as ethnic cleansing. He's also pushing to expand the Abraham Accords, aiming for Saudi Arabia to sign a normalisation deal with Israel. But Saudi Arabia's ambassador to the UK, Prince Khalid bin Bandar, says this won't happen without Palestinian statehood.
We cannot have a normalisation with Israel without a solution for the Palestinians. And the solution for the Palestinians is a state. It's very clear. That doesn't mean we can't have discussions. You know, Saudi Arabia is a country that engages with everyone. We believe engagement is the way to move things forward.
There was more progress on Monday as Israel and Hamas reached agreement on the 3rd phase of the hostage release programme. Hamas have agreed to release 8 more hostages this week, which meant that Israeli forces lifted the barricade they had placed to stop Palestinians returning to their homes in northern Gaza. Chris Rose of the Amos Trust says the scale of the cleanup that the returning inhabitants face is truly horrifying.
The UN said 80 years to rebuild the housing units. And it has to start with those basic infrastructure things, electricity, getting rid of the rubble. You've got 50 million tonnes of rubble. A load of that is contaminated with body parts.
As tens of thousands return home, there have been calls for a dramatic increase in the levels of aid being allowed through checkpoints. Sam Rose from the UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency, UNRWA, said it's very difficult to get supplies flowing because of Israeli restrictions.
It will make life very difficult for UNRWA if those supplies can't come in, but for the overall aid operation and progress on that not only alleviates the suffering of the people, but has risks for the ceasefire agreement continuing as well. So it's very daunting, very, very concerning.
Thursday saw the next group of hostages released by Hamas in the city of Khan Yunis. 3 Israelis, including an 80-year-old man, and 5 Thai nationals were handed over in front of a large crowd who almost disrupted the process and caused Israel to delay the release of Palestinian prisoners. And despite promises to increase the flow of aid to Gaza, a ban on the UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency, UNRWA, from operating in eastern Jerusalem came into effect on Thursday. Roland Frederick, the head of West Bank operations, says the ban will be disruptive.
We're going to see a quite severe impact on a lot of very vulnerable people. And the people who come here are people who have no access to other alternatives. People who cannot afford to pay additional money for chronic disease medication. They get that for free from us.
Still to come on the Standout 7, Elon Musk leans too far right and we pay tribute to a British musical icon.
Right after this. Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Welcome back.
He went viral for all the wrong reasons at Trump's inauguration day after making a gesture some compared to a fascist salute. But Elon Musk doesn't seem fazed by the Nazi allegations. On Thursday, he posted a series of Nazi-related puns to his X account, prompting the Anti-Defamation League, which campaigns against anti-Semitism, to withdraw their previous support. It all comes as his company X is under investigation by the European Commission for allegedly violating EU content moderation rules with its content recommendations system. And Musk's involvement in European politics deepened after he made a virtual appearance at a rally for Germany's far-right AfD party on Saturday.
Let's go! Fight for a great future for Germany. Fight for a great future for Germany. Go, go, go. Convince your friends, convince everyone. Let's go. You want the future to be great? You need to make it great and fight for the future to be great. That's how it becomes great.
Bill Gates is not a man you'd imagine swears a lot, but asked about fellow tech billionaire Elon Musk's adventures in right-wing politics, he described Elon's far-right phase as insane shit. Musk's enthusiasm for interfering in European politics seems all the stranger when he's about to take on a major role in Donald Trump's government as he angles for a desk in the White House. Gates isn't alone in his view of Musk's behaviour either. Wikipedia co-founder Jimmy Wales says he should get back to what he's good at.
People always say to me, do you have any advice for Elon Musk? And I say, yeah, that electric car idea was a good one. You should go back to that. Stop messing around on the internet. But your key market for electric cars will tend to be people who care more about the environmental issues and so on and so forth. And these are the kinds of people he's sort of bashing and carrying on against.
Tuesday saw Serbian Prime Minister Miloš Vučević step down from his post with the intention of diffusing tensions. His resignation comes after weeks of protests in the town of Novi Sad, sparked by the death of 15 people when a railway station roof collapsed. Vučević was the former mayor of Novi Sad, and there have been accusations of corruption over the appointment of the construction company that renovated the roof. The protests have expanded, with students and farmers joining forces to block streets in Belgrade, and clearly pro-Russian populist President Alexander Vučić was hoping that the PM's removal will calm things down.
My irrevocable decision is to resign from the position of Prime Minister of the Republic of Serbia. I had a long meeting with the President of the Republic this morning, and he accepted my decision and arguments.
The world lost an icon on Thursday as the death was announced of Marianne Faithfull at 78 years of age. She was a singer and an actress who shot to fame in the 1960s and reinvented herself several times throughout her life. She was discovered in 1964 at the age of 18 at a party by Rolling Stones manager Andrew Loog Oldham, and within a year she had a top 10 UK hit with a song As Tears Go By. The song was written by Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, and she and Jagger had a 4-year relationship which ended badly and saw Marianne homeless and addicted to heroin. She recovered and made 2 comebacks, including as a jazz singer, winning a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2009 and being presented with one of France's highest honours. She lived happily in Paris in later years and was quite content, as she revealed in a TV interview back in 2016. Rest in peace, Marianne.
I get more joy from my flowers than anything. I like to be on my own, yes. I'm pretty lonely, actually, but it's okay. I carry my home here. Where I live is not my home. I am my home.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes, we'll give you the world.